Are you ready to listen to my dad Joe and Uncle Justin talk about sports? Now on with the show!
The Joe Mays and J-Raff Show is brought to you by Mays Sandwich Shop, which have been serving the greater West Lawn area delicious food for over 70 years. You are listening to the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show.
Boring.
A weekly podcast about sports since 2011.
Don't you ever get tired of being wrong all the time?
With a focus on football.
Second and goal. Pass. Got it. Touchdown. This guy has had some year.
Al, I've got to tell you, in a pressure situation, I don't know if I have ever seen anybody be better than Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp. Wow, what a drive.
4th and 1. Burrow trying to keep it going, gets spun down, gets it away, and incomplete. The Rams now running down to celebrate with a defensive play.
And guess who?
Of course.
I mean, you don't even have to think about it.
Pointing to the ring finger.
When everything was on the line for the Rams, yes, we know it was Aaron Donald.
But the Rams were built to win the Super Bowl, and they have sealed the deal.
Now, here are your hosts, Joe Mays and Justin Raffoff.
Yes, the Rams were built to win the Super Bowl, just like the Eagles this year. I mean, they certainly tossed aside any semblance of a future to win the Super Bowl this year, right? Right, Justin?
I was actually thinking about that. I'm like, some owners like to point that out, but maybe they forget the Eagles have the 10th overall draft pick this year and their own draft pick this year. So hopefully the 31st pick.
Look, while
thanks to
you're
your
welcome.
team
You're
getting
welcome.
to bump up a spot
yes,
there,
thank
so.
you, Tom Brady. Yeah, so I mean, I understand at the root of that discussion by the bitter 49ers of like they feel like the Eagles are what the Eagles tried to do a decade ago, the super team or whatever,
right.
because of the names that they got on 1-year deals and the great player acquisitions, not just this past offseason or even during the season, but over the last few years they've built it up to this point. But it is nothing like what the Rams did last year or over the last few years to get to that point. They mortgaged their future. They're already paying for it. The Eagles, while they will lose some people this offseason, are still very much going to be competitive next year.
Right. And you look at it, we mentioned the draft picks, but of the starters on offense, only one starter on offense is not an Eagles draft pick. And that's A.J. Brown, who they traded essentially. They traded this past year and were able to get him. But like he's the only of the 11 offensive. Now on defense, it's a different story. But even there, some of the guys are Eagles draft picks, but some of the guys are guys that they've traded for over the years. But I mean that's just kind of how it goes. And yeah, I have been thinking of this. Like we've heard a lot of. Well, the Eagles have the better they just have a loaded roster top to bottom. They're good top to bottom. I want to be like, yeah, that's how teams get to the Super Bowl. It doesn't guarantee you a Super Bowl, but like look at the Rams last year. Like we said, like they had a great roster across the board. Look at the Bucs the year before that. There were some people who were surprised by that Tom picked Tampa. We weren't at all surprised.
No, we mentioned them in the offseason.
They are a quarterback away, and they were stacked. And like, yeah, they were a good roster, top to bottom. Yeah. Like, you look at the last time the Eagles won. Like, honestly, that reminds me.
The Eagles won.
Yes, the only time the Eagles won. That reminds me a lot of this one. Like the Eagles, like top to bottom, had a great roster, but like at quarterback and coach, people are going to pick Tom Brady over Nick Foles, and people are going to pick Bill Belichick over Doug Peterson.
Yes,
like. I feel like they're in a similar spot this year. Like, people are going to pick Mahomes over Hurts. People are going to pick Reed over Sirianni. But, like, top to bottom, the Eagles have a good roster. Like, don't apologize for it. Like, that's what they do.
So we are going to do our Super Bowl 57 preview We'll talk all about the Eagles, Chiefs, and a variety of subjects, topics. But Natalie is joining us again. She wanted to talk Super Bowl. You already are getting fan chats from Nana saying hello. And if we have time at the end, we'll pull out the trivia book and do some trivia.
Yep.
But I know you're going to join us for our Super Bowl preview. A few other things I wanted to mention. Got an Amazon order this afternoon delivered directly by new Prime driver Justin Raffoff.
Yeah.
So I got a nice little package from Austin to add to the collection here. And this is my own personalized
Honey teddy bear.
well, I think it's actually. Is it?
I think it had started to be Henny, but then I think he made it Maze or something.
Yeah,
like
because
So-
there's a 7 on the front.
Right.
Yeah, well, yes, good numbers all around. I appreciate that. So that will be added to the collection and will be on display here once I get the mess behind me figured out. That will be added to the shelves on display here in the studio. In addition to that, it is our 12th anniversary to the day. Now, not the day of our first show. I believe our first show was on the 20th back in 2011. But when Justin and I decided to do this was February 11th, 2011, 12 years ago today, well before you were even born or thought of. You had no existence whatsoever, Natalie.
No, but you were thinking about me.
Well, thinking
You
of
wanted-
maybe one day having someone, but no idea that it would turn into you. But here you are
Is
now.
that a good thing or a bad thing?
It's 50-50. But yeah, Justin and I, 12 years ago today, we had a discussion of we should start a podcast, and I'm not sure either of us ever thought it would make it 12 years.
Someone just this week asked me, they're like, how did that start? I was like, really? Joey sent me a text, hey, would you be interested in? And I said, yes, absolutely.
Well, I mean, we've said it so many times. It essentially is just us putting out there for others to consume of our general discussions via message or in person, just what we were talking sports-wise. And it's kind of evolved to become almost exclusively football.
Yeah.
I mean, we love the other sports, but football is definitely number one. And when it comes to the NFL and Penn State and Wilson, which we spun off into an entire new show, which is now entering its 9th season, coming up in just a few weeks.
What was it?
The Bulldog Hour.
Oh,
We had Wilson-specific episodes on here before. We talked about Wilson football and Wilson sports in general, but back at the end of July 2015, I basically told Justin we were doing this Wilson show now in place of this show during the fall. And now we're getting ready to start the 9th season of that show. So looking forward to adding segments to that show this year. I already told Coach Doms it's non-negotiable. He has a weekly coaches show coming up since he will have so much more free time as he retires from teaching at the end of this year. And it moves into a volunteer role with track, but will be staying on as head coach of the Bulldogs. So I said lots of free time to start the Doug Dom's coaches show. So I wasn't really giving him an option. It was just like
You're
this
just
is
letting
this
him
is
know.
what's happening.
Letting him
Yeah. So, but yeah, 12 years. I do have something here that I found a few weeks ago last month. It's actually the first 16 outlines of the
Oh my
show
gosh.
that we did.
What?
So I used to print out like a show schedule to keep us, because this was both very new to
Right.
me
so
and Justin.
We didn't to make sure we knew what we were going to talk about. We'd kind of have an outline ready, to start the show, so that we could just kind of go through and know what we were going to talk about ahead of time.
Yeah, so the first show, and it was weird because of the tech and everything involved when we were doing this in 2011. Things were way different than how we do it now. But we had to call in with a phone to Blog Talk Radio, and that broadcast our show. And you could listen to it on the computer, and it would record, but it was recording through the cell phone. That's how we had to call in. There was a whole thing, and that lasted for a few years actually.
Yeah.
We only discontinued that
Logan says go Cowboys.
at the advent of live streaming across more platforms. We moved to YouTube, I think, within the first 2 months, or at least we moved to streaming in the first 2 months, but it was strictly on Ustream, which was kind of the beginning of live streaming in general before Facebook, Twitter, and even YouTube had that stuff. So we've been on the cutting edge of all this technology. Hasn't led to huge viewership, like we're not up there with New Heights, which is a brand new show, but already is like the #1 sports podcast on the iTunes store on Apple. So, but it is a phenomenal show. It's been a lot of fun to listen to. Got turned on to it mostly from their mentions of Chad Henne, the Chiefs' backup quarterback, when he threw that touchdown pass in the playoffs that Travis Kelce caught and threw it into the stands.
Right.
And, after the fact was like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. That was Chad's first postseason touchdown. And they've been trying to get the ball back. I believe they have. I know they were working on it. But ever since listening to those clips of their broadcast of Chad's football and trying to get it back, I've listened to every episode since and I've become a huge fan because Jason and Travis they're just fun. They're entertaining. It's very likable. And I know I was defending them on Twitter because I saw people calling them insufferable, and I was just like, just move on. Like they're not ones to have ill will again. Like I just don't get it. But I'm very much enjoying their show. I got my sweatshirt on today for Super Bowl, representing both sides. The Kelce Bowl, the brothers battling, first brothers playing each other in the Super Bowl. And
wait, that's the first time this has happened? Like,
yeah.
The first time brothers played each other in the Super Bowl?
It is, yeah.
Brothers coached against each other a few years ago. But
when
brothers have never played against each other in the Super Bowl.
The 49ers against the Ravens about a decade ago.
And the lights went out in the stadium.
They did.
It was just chaos. Yeah.
Insanity. But yeah, so quickly, so the first episode premiered on February 20th, 2011. And we did our introductions. But do you remember what our first topic was? The first thing we talked about?
I don't.
Best quarterbacks currently playing.
Oh,
and we each listed our top 5, and then we went into our Philly rundown, which we did for a while. We got to talk about Thon, and also the birth of Pat and Val's baby is listed on this. And this was the...
Was that Annika?
It was. Yeah. That is Annika. It was not quite a week after she would have been born.
Oh my gosh.
So that was the premiere episode of the Joe Mays and J-Raff show on February 20th, 2011.
Was it you guys that we saw at
we were after dinner, at Stout Tavern? Yeah. So, Justin and I didn't know, but we each had reservations for Valentine's dinner at Stout Tavern up in, I guess, Wilmelsdorf. Is that Wilmelsdorf up there?
Yeah, sure.
Robizonia. I always forget which is Wilmelsdorf. And we were both at dinner and both got the text at the same time that Annika was born. So.
Right. It's not a real big place, so like our excitement kind of filled the room a little bit.
And here she is about to turn 12 in 3 days.
That's crazy.
So crazy, fun, entertaining. But that was our first episode, and I've tried many times because I may have on some hard drive somewhere all those episodes saved, but I haven't gone back and tried to find them. But Blog Talk has them all technically archived on their site, but every time I try to download those early episodes, it gives me an error. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if I'll ever be able to pull that off and grab some of those early episodes and play clips, especially like when we do a top 5. That would be really interesting to see, especially when it was current.
Right.
See how that played out, here now over a decade later. But a lot of fun, those early episodes. Things have changed a lot over the years, but it's been fun, and we don't have any plans to stop anytime soon because I think we both really enjoy it, especially now with you, Natalie, getting involved and having fun talking sports. And Austin was here a few weeks ago, and I'm sure we'll get him back on the show again sometime soon. But
he's been begging me the entire time.
Well, it'll happen, Austin.
Well, that's what
we'll
I
make
tell
sure.
him. I'm like, we'll make sure it happens.
Yeah. We've done it for 12 years, and there's no end in sight. So before we dive into the preview, I have a story that I've been meaning to tell. Neither of them have heard it. Only my dad knows about it because it happened right in front of him yesterday. And this will lead into our discussion because it will be about why I'm not cheering for the Eagles. Well, no, why I'm not cheering for the Eagles is because Chad's on the Chiefs, and I want Chad to win. So, but it just reinforced my position of cheering for Kansas City in tomorrow's Super Bowl. Because yesterday, I was leaving work. It was a little after 3 o'clock. I was running late to go and get Natalie and Haley, later than I want to be, as you know how crazy the school area and parking lot can be trying to get over there and get situated. So I'm walking out talking to my dad, and I am wearing my Zach Thomas jersey because, thankfully, late 2 nights ago now, Zach Thomas was elected to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, which, if you've been listening to the show...
He got the knock on the door.
He got the knock on the door by... well, I guess technically he was inside and walked into his family, as we'll find out tonight. Actually, that airs an hour special on the Pro Football Hall of Fame class, finding out that they made it to the Hall of Fame.
Those videos are awesome.
I remember the first one I ever saw was the Jason Taylor one about 6-7 years ago when he got elected, who is or was at one time, I'm not sure on the situation right now, but Zach Thomas's brother-in-law. And that was fun. But I think it was done differently then. They were like, they had the finalists all in a hotel or something.
Yeah,
and
it
like,
was weird. It was weird.
That's how I think the knock on the door came about, because they used to get like all like 10 or 15 finalists
and it's not
together.
the same guy. That guy retired, right? The
Right.
guy who's like 6'9". Like
yeah,
he's
the huge guy. Yeah, I forget his name. So it's a little bit different now.
Right.
And I think that may have started when they moved to this NFL honors format
so.
What was that, about 4 years ago, 4 or 5
Something
years
like
ago? 3-4 years ago? I forget exactly. But now they drop in on these guys like a week or so, 2 weeks before the NFL honors. And then them and their whole family have to keep it a secret. And I've been devastated the last 3 years when Zach Thomas was named a finalist and was not selected. His first year to be a finalist was when the Chiefs and 49ers were playing in Super Bowl 54 in Miami, which would have just been perfect. First year he's a finalist, get elected when his jersey number is the Super Bowl and it's in the town where he played basically his entire career. Didn't happen. Really disappointed. Well, then 2 more years passed where he's also a finalist and gets passed over. I've put it out there. Other people have put it out there many times as why not only was he deserving, but deserved to be in well before this point.
Others. Right.
Well, I hate to get into that because I don't want to disrespect anyone.
Right. And not so much that, but like we also every year, I know you and I talk about like, oh man, you're adding so and so to the list.
Now you're pushing
and
these
making
people.
it tough.
Well, yeah. Look at the wide receivers. Look at how far back the wide receiver log now is. It's yes, Austin, you will be on the show. We did the trading cards the other month. We'll make sure we get you on the show when we next time we have like a weird afternoon show, because I know Sunday nights are tough unless we do it in the summer, but we'll see. Hopefully, but before then we'll be able to have another afternoon show. Maybe we can have Natalie and Austin on together and talk about a topic. But well, guaranteed, it's happening. Write it down. But yeah, so the Hall of Fame, I'm super excited that Zach Thomas is making it. I'm going to the ceremony. I don't know who's going with me, how I'm getting there, what I'm going to see, but I'm going. I would like to go to the game on Thursday and at a minimum the induction on Saturday. So that's something that will be in the works. I didn't get to see Dan Marino because this was during college. There was finding money and places to lodge were issues, when you're, I don't know, 18, 19 years old or whatever it would have been. I guess he was inducted. So, yeah, it would have been 19 when he was inducted. So traveling that far without knowing anyone or anything or having much money was going to be difficult. So I didn't get to see Marino go in. I was actually working the day that happened. But I'm going to see Zach Thomas. I told you that 4 years ago when he was a finalist. I was like, I'm going to see him get inducted. So he's getting there. What does this have to do with my story? Well, I was wearing his jersey at work. I went and got it, wore it. Didn't wear it around the grill, not getting it all greasy, but I wore it throughout the day when I wasn't busy with anything that could make it dirty. Put on my jacket, walk outside, talking to my dad, going to get the girls. Across the street, my dad's yelling to me, and a car is sitting outside the shop. I believe he was just inside, and he was in his car eating, but I could hear he's like connected to like a call, and it's super loud. Like the speakers are jam packed. That I actually stopped talking to my dad once. I was like, "What is that noise?"
Right. Like when you hear it's like blasting.
I mean,
like
he was either listening to music really loud or on Bluetooth, but the speakers were like screaming.
Right.
And I finally realized what it was. I was like, okay, like whatever, didn't matter. Talking to my dad. The car, that noise stops. The car pulls out and all of a sudden slows down. He rolls down his window. Oh, no. And I'm like, I guess he needed directions or something. Like he's still like eating. Right. Like you can see he's still eating. And he looks at me and he goes, "Who are you guys playing on Sunday?" And I know right away like what he's talking about. I'm playing dumb. I'm like, me? Who am I playing on Sunday? He's like, no, who's that jersey? I'm like, the Dolphins? He's like, yeah, who you guys playing on Sunday? And I go, are you an Eagles fan? He goes, go Birds, and drives off. And like before he could drive away, I goes, that sounds about right. I literally have no idea who this guy was. No idea. I hadn't even seen him inside the shop.
This reminds me a lot of, like, a lot of times people are like, why do you not like the Steelers so much? And it was my time in Pittsburgh, and distinctly, like, it came to a head probably before this, but like my junior year, the Eagles made the Super Bowl, and the Steelers lost in the AFC Championship game to the Steelers. Or sorry, the Steelers lost to the Patriots.
Patriots, yeah.
And I'm wearing my Eagles jersey that Monday. You know, like I'm wearing Eagles jersey to class. And everybody's like, the Steelers or the Eagles are going to get destroyed by the Patriots. They don't have a chance. And my only response would be like, what chance do the Steelers have? Like, better chance than the Steelers. Like, and just, like, I wasn't going to get into it because, like, you understand. It's futile. But at the same time, you're like, whatever. Like, whatever. Yep.
Yeah, like when my dad didn't like hear the entire exchange,
Right,
he was like, "What was that about? Is he giving me problems about your jersey?" I was like, "Well, sort of, like in a way." And
Right,
I know
but,
it's just supposed to be playful, but you can always tell, like when you and I have a conversation, it's different.
Well, and we talk about this all the time, and like we talk about it with you and me. We talk about it like with your dad. Like I give you a hard time, but like I'll take a hard time from you. Like. Same with your dad. Like, I'll give your dad a hard time about the Cowboys, but I know he'll give me a hard time about the Eagles. Like, that's just, but that's like the understood part of it. Also, we know each other.
Right.
So, like, at the same time, like, I don't do it randomly because I don't want it randomly back.
Right.
You know, like, either way. So, like,
well,
and I know that, I wish that was a more generally understood concept. It isn't always.
I mean, and you nailed exactly what I was going to say. One, that I know it's not limited to a Philadelphia fan base, and I don't like when people say that about Flyers, Sixers,
right?
You know, Phillies. Like, oh, Philly fans. Be like, dude, I've been so many places, and Philly fans are not any different.
Right.
But this has also proved my point about Eagles fans. Not to say they're different than the others, but why I haven't been an Eagles fan. And the things you just said popped into my head right away because I immediately was like, this guy is many words that I don't want to say right now. But the worst part of it is he'll be a hypocrite. He'd be the first one whining and complaining if a Cowboys fan did that to him.
Right.
Like, he would be the
you,
one.
Or if
he'd
you
be
guys
the,
are giving him a hard time when he walked in the shop. Like,
you could just tell
like,
he was beer muscles.
Right.
Like,
right. In his car as he's driving away.
Yeah.
Right.
And that leads me to my final point. And this will hurt, Justin.
Oh, gosh.
I hate Go Birds.
Go Birds.
I hate it. Do you know why I hate it, though? Because I never liked Fly Eagles Fly. I found that annoying, but it was mostly because... It was mostly because that came about or was more in the front of me and all around me when I was in my anyone but the Eagles phase for the first 20 years of my life, you know? Through the 90s and early 2000s.
I've got two guesses on the Go Birds. Is it from the Vikings thing with the kid who was like, "Go Birds"?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
But also,
I'm just like,
right. Is it because there are lots of birds?
Yes, that's what that's what I don't, and I know I'm.
Well, at least the Chiefs aren't birds, like because that would
be really stupid.
Right,
yes.
like.
But that was my point, and I wanted to bring that up.
If my prediction had been completely wrong and they were playing
Eagles,
the Ravens and people were going go birds the whole time, that would drive you even more.
The thing, but what also I think proves my point there is I feel like there's a huge set of the fans that like it wouldn't matter. I'm like, you're literally not telling us what team you're rooting for. And right now, because I know the two teams that are left, I get it. But also yelling "Go Birds!" There are at least four other teams, right?
So I think
are birds.
I think of that in college sports with Go State.
Yeah, I know.
Not all the time, but like Go State. And again, I am usually in and around. I know what people are saying. Like I'm aware of it.
Right.
But like, I'm like specifically.
Please be
right.
Please narrow it down. Please narrow it down.
I know what teams are birds. There's the Falcons, Eagles, Ravens and Cardinals.
You're missing one.
Which one am I missing?
Seahawks.
Seahawks.
Who
yes.
I guess technically isn't a real bird, as I've been told, is an indigenous people symbol, right? Wasn't it taken from a totem?
Well, and I think it's ospreys may be
Is that what
known
it's-
as Seahawks.
Oh, are they
to some people? I don't know the whole story, but yeah, it's kind of like
an animal that flaps its wings and
you
flies.
would know this because you've been on that Wallop trip and did the
yes.
stuff with
There are a lot of
Mr.
birds.
Doms that there is no seagull.
No, there's not.
There are gulls, very many gulls.
Lots
that live
of
near
gulls.
the sea.
And you better be able to
Seagulls
figure out the difference between
is
all
a
of them.
generic term.
Yes.
Um,
Correct. So there
like
are
birds.
So there are 5 different bird mascots in the NFL alone. So I would rather hear Fly Eagles Fly than Go Birds because I just don't wrap my head around it. There are so many teams that are birds. I also hate when people refer to the Dolphins as fish, but that's getting very scientific.
Right, but that
is
also bothers me
not-
too.
Dolphins are not fish.
They are not fish. Correct. And you know who's one of the
Dolphins
worst
are
at that?
dolphins.
Uncle Rich.
Are you there, Uncle Rich?
But I know.
Patriots fan who didn't even make it to the playoffs.
Oh,
Man.
shots fired.
Man,
I know squish the fish just sounds good. It's just incorrect.
it's better than squish the aquatic mammals. Like, just
Yes.
doesn't roll off
Yeah,
the
it does.
tongue
Yeah.
as well.
Little tougher, sure.
I don't want squish the fish. That just sounds weird.
It sounds disgusting, huh?
Yes.
All right, so that's my story. That is, I mean, I was already rooting for the Chiefs, but if there was any possibility for me to be happy about a Chiefs loss tomorrow, that's out the window from random guy on the street poking me. And
I get it.
I wanted to engage in a conversation with him because I knew that I would defeat him.
Right.
It was just evident.
But we all know that's not what he was looking for.
No, he was just looking to be obnoxious, and that's exactly what he was. But, all right, Natalie, let's move on to our Super Bowl preview. Eagles, Chiefs. Do you have some information for us?
Yes, I
Or where do you want to start?
So I just want to start with, I'm sorry, Daddy, but the Eagles are definitely most likely to win the Super Bowl
And why do you say that?
because they have the better. I feel like they have the better offense.
Okay,
I know Chad's there.
with the
and
Chiefs.
Mahomes, yeah,
Mhm.
but like, we have Jason.
Kelsey,
Yes.
the center.
Yes, and he's really good.
Do you think he's the best center in the NFL?
That depends.
It depends.
Yeah, that
I think he's
depends.
one of the best centers in the
Yes,
NFL?
I do. We also have Hurts. We have Jalen Hurts, the
Okay.
quarterback.
You're saying we a lot. Are you cheering for the Eagles?
I've never been more
No.
proud. I feel like she's setting me up to like smash me down a little later though. But
All right, so you're a Jalen Hurts fan. You think he's good? You think he's a good
Yeah,
quarterback?
I think he's a good quarterback, but like, he hurt his shoulder.
He did
which I think is
almost 2 months ago now.
Kind of a little bit of a downfall. Like, he's healed now. He's gonna play.
You think
but
he's 100%? You think he's fully healthy?
No.
You don't think he's fully healthy?
I think maybe he's like 90%. Like,
Okay.
his
Well,
shoulder could mess up, and it would set the Chiefs up for a win.
Yeah, that would be tough. We saw
Oh, yeah.
in the last few weeks this season when Jalen got hurt against the Bears, his shoulder. He missed 3 games, I believe. Minshew won 1, but then lost 2. And Jalen, since he's been back, has been able to win games, but I feel like most people have said it didn't look like he was 100% quite yet. Now, he had 2 more weeks off, and he's looked good when he's been back. It's just they feel like maybe the play calling or his style of play hasn't been exactly like it was for the first 12, 14 weeks of the year. So we'll see how much of an impact that has. I guess with a quarterback and the running style, I believe, Jalen Hurts combined regular season and postseason and now has the second most rushing attempts in a season, behind only Lamar Jackson in his MVP campaign from about 3 or 4 years ago. So the odds of a re-injury, I guess, are pretty high. However, in this game, Natalie, I think the Chiefs quarterback's dealing with an injury too.
Yes.
What's wrong with Patrick Mahomes?
He has an high ankle sprain.
And do you think he's fully recovered yet?
I do not, because that is more of a recent injury. It happened in wait, was it against the Jaguars?
Yes, it was. Yep. Yeah, in the wild card round, right?
That's how we got the Henny revenge
that was
game.
only like
right.
what, a month ago?
Yeah, about
3 weeks.
3 weeks or so. I guess it was technically 4 weeks ago now, because we had 2 weeks to lead up to the Super Bowl, and then we had the conference championship divisional.
Yeah, but that would have
Wait,
been.
was that the divisional round? Or
That was the divisional round because they had the bye.
Oh, right, they had the bye. You're right.
Right.
Yeah, so it was 3 weeks ago. Yeah, I was thinking they've had to play in the wild card. No, they had the bye. So yeah, 3 weeks ago was that injury, and I feel like more often than not when we hear high ankle injury,
It's usually like a
4 to 6 weeks. You know, and sometimes they got to go in there surgically to
I'm
help
not
the
buying
healing
it.
process.
I think he's perfectly fine.
You think he's perfectly fine?
I think he's better than he was.
You just jinxed it. Thank you very much.
I think he's
Justin.
better. I think it's healthier than when he injured it.
All right, Natalie. How about in terms? So you think the Eagles have an overall better offense?
Yes.
You think Hurts and Mahomes are about equals?
Yes, I do think they're very good, and they've also had injuries this season. But overall, I think the Eagles are more likely to win.
All right, so you have MVP Patrick Mahomes, MVP runner-up Jalen Hurts. Also, I think Offensive Player of the Year. Both of them were in the top 5, I believe, for Offensive Player of the Year. Who won Offensive Player of the Year? Justin Jefferson, who Uncle Justin has been on here making fun of before for the reasons that he doesn't think he should win Offensive Player of the Year.
Well,
that may have just been in our chat. I don't know.
I
if he
just
was on
mean
the
like
show.
in their most important games, he did absolutely nothing.
Right.
Like all year.
And I was in agreement with him, but I wanted to throw Justin.
Don't
under
get me
the
wrong.
bus.
He's great. He's great. Arguably the best wide receiver in the NFL.
Yeah.
But the problem with a wide receiver is they're only as good as the quarterback who can get him the ball.
Right.
Like
And Kirk Cousins is now a much better singer than he is quarterback.
it's just one of those where in the biggest games, Jefferson was limited this year because the Vikings were limited. That's just kind of how it was.
Natalie, how about offensively? Or stay with the offensive theme. Running backs. Who do you think has the better group of running backs, the Eagles or the Chiefs?
I stand by my previous statement. I still think that the Eagles are going to win, but I do think in terms of running backs that the Chiefs have the better.
You like the Chiefs running backs?
Yes, I do.
Who on the Chiefs do you like better?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, do you like Pacheco, McKinnon? Do you think one of them's going to have a bigger game than your Eagles running backs?
And Edwards-Helaire might be back.
I think-
Right, that's who are your Eagles running backs? Do you remember?
I can't. Hold on. I think I made notes about the running backs, so I know facts about them, but I can't remember them. What was one of them was? Oh, it's on the tip of my tongue. Come on.
Right, it's Miles Sanders, right?
Oh, yes, that was the one I was thinking.
Boston Scott and Kenneth Gainwell. And then for the Chiefs, you have Isaiah Pacheco, Jerick McKinnon, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who was just activated off IR. And I don't know how much of a role he'll play in the Super Bowl because he hasn't played in a long time. But those are your two running back groups. I think where the Eagles have a clear advantage is along the offensive line. Natalie already mentioned Jason Kelce, but Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata are two of the best, if not the best, left and right tackle in the game. And Landon Dickerson, who I assume is fully healthy from his arm injury that he suffered in the NFC Championship game, is developing into one of the best guards in the NFL. So I know the Chiefs have tried to make an effort to improve their offensive line over the last 2 years. That was sort of their downfall against the Bucs in the Super Bowl 2 years ago and the Bengals last year.
And their center, who was Jalen Hurts' center at Oklahoma,
right, Creed Humphrey,
is actually PFF was the only center rated above Jason Kelsey for the season.
Well,
they're both really close, but they're the top 2 centers in the league, which as an O-line guy, I know you like that.
Yeah, I do. And I love the pick of Creed Humphrey because I believe he was a later pick than Landon Dickerson was at the Eagles. He went in the second round, Dickerson, right?
Yeah, I think so.
And I think Creed Humphrey was a 4th or 5th rounder, I think.
Probably.
I could be completely wrong on that. But they brought in Orlando Brown. They traded for him a couple years ago now. The line still isn't quite there. You still see Mahomes running around a lot. And they haven't been able to develop a great ground and pound running game. So the Eagles definitely have the advantage on the offensive line. I also, in terms of weapons, the wide receivers absolutely go the Eagles' direction, which is, I think, honestly, when you combine that, is the reason Mahomes won MVP versus Jalen Hurts. Because I think people looked at it, both players had a phenomenal year, but look what Jalen had and look what Mahomes has.
The high profile of losing Tyreek Hill.
Right.
Like he lost Tyreek Hill, and his numbers went up.
Yeah.
Now, in part because Mahomes had a great year last year. It wasn't as just otherworldly as some of his other years have been. So people are like, "Oh, remember last year we had multiple conversations of what's wrong with Patrick Mahomes?" Not us, but like
the
out
media,
there were conversations of what's wrong with Patrick Mahomes as they still made a deep playoff run.
Right. So, yeah, the loss of Tyreek Hill, the distribution of targets and receptions amongst so many people that don't strike fear in opposing defenses.
Right. Because the rest of the guys are mostly rehabs from other spots. Not all of them, but like Kadarius Toney, was
lost in New York.
Right, and I'm okay that he's out of New York because I feel like if he was in New York now with Dable from the beginning, I know Dable's the one who sent him off, but like if he was there from the beginning with Dable, I think that would have worked out differently, and I'm okay that it didn't. But yeah, he did nothing for the Giants in a year and a half. Absolutely nothing.
Right.
Juju had his moments in Pittsburgh, but it was different after Antonio Brown was gone. Like in Pittsburgh for Juju. So like they've got a few guys who were the other guy, but they also have Kelsey.
Right. So outside of Travis Kelsey, though, like I feel like that's the only offensive position I give the Chiefs a clear edge. And I don't dislike Dallas Goedert, but Travis Kelsey maybe is probably the best in the NFL.
Oh yeah, he absolutely is. He absolutely
is. No disrespect to Dallas Goedert, but Travis Kelsey gets the edge there.
Right.
Eagles have the offensive line. Eagles have the overall receiving group when especially if you just look at the wide receivers, because AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, that 1-2 punch is electric.
Devontae Smith going to be I thought I had seen the 5th, but
I saw 4th today.
Other places I've seen 4th.
Yeah. 4th person.
The 4th person to win Heisman, National Championship, and a Super Bowl. Right.
Imagine if you do Super Bowl and Super Bowl MVP. Feel like
that list gets really small.
It's really tough to win the MVP as a wide receiver because the quarterback's got to get you the ball.
Right.
So unless he would catch 2 or 3 touchdowns or do something in the return game, I don't know. Does he have many?
Who won?
Does he return?
I wonder who
anything?
won the 2006. I wonder who won the 2006 Super Bowl MVP, because that was Roethlisberger's first, but that was where Randall L threw the 1 touchdown, on the reverse. So just
you're talking about in Detroit Super Bowl 40.
Yes. Just
was it Hines Ward?
It could have been, but I'm just thinking Roethlisberger didn't play out of his mind that game, so it could have been someone other.
Well,
than
didn't Santonio Holmes win it, or did Roethlisberger win it when they beat Arizona?
I feel like Roethlisberger would have won it in that game, but maybe
Holmes had that late tat. That was Santonio Holmes, right? Wasn't it?
Yeah, he had the toe tap.
Yeah.
But it's hard for a receiver to win without the quarterback.
And it's happened.
Yeah.
It's happened.
Yeah.
But I feel like quarterback, they're always gonna get the benefit of the doubt when it comes to that. But so offensively, we give the edge to the Eagles overall. How about defensively? What do we think defensively? Who's got the better defense? Did you get to look into any of that?
I really did only offense.
You do the
for both
offense?
the
All right. Well, Justin
teams.
and I will talk a little defense. You can listen along here and chime in with anything that you may have overheard or saw while you
Yeah.
were doing your research. Defensively,
Before you say anything, I do also have a story.
oh, you have
about-
a story? Okay.
Yeah. I was at school the other day, just after the Eagles won the championship game. And everybody's wearing Eagles jerseys. Go Birds!
How did that make you feel, Natalie?
I was kind of just the only person wearing a plain shirt, but I was not the only person not wearing an Eagles jersey. There was a boy in my class. He was wearing a Mahomes jersey when he came to school the next day, and we had gym that day, so we were going to gym, and this is a few days after, and we're all taunting this girl named Charlotte in my class, because she hates the Eagles, anyone but the Eagles for her.
And who does she like?
I'm getting to that.
Oh, okay. That's where we're going. All right.
And we're taunting her, and Mrs. V, our gym teacher, she's like, well, I suppose you know a team who's better than the Eagles? And she comes out and she says, the Cowboys and the Giants.
You did tell me that story.
It's okay to be wrong sometimes.
All right, so let's talk about defense in the Super Bowl. So the Eagles have been, outside of the hiccup where they were getting run on for a bit, which prompted the signings of Linval Joseph and Ndamukong Suh.
Right. Which, again, not to sidetrack it completely, but in part, like, oh, they're going and getting these guys. Anybody could have signed
They
them.
were street free agents.
Right.
Sitting around doing nothing.
Right. They didn't have to give up anything for them.
Right.
Now, I understand, if the Texans call Ndamukong Suh, he's not going to answer. I get that, but...
Well, I think they both said that it would took basically a special team to get them off the couch.
Why not? You probably saw the thing Ross showed today about how Ndamukong Suh is the highest paid defensive player ever in the NFL, over the course of his
career. Yeah.
Yeah, not this year, but over the course.
He took a whole bunch of that money from Miami. So
yeah.
But
there you go, another former Dolphin to get a ring.
Yay! Outside of the issues they had earlier in the season that they tried to plug immediately. And then the hiccups against the Commanders, that was their... I feel like they're only one true loss because it's tough to pin the Cowboys' loss on them without Jalen. And same thing with the Saints game.
They turned the ball over 4 times in that game. That's crazy.
And the same thing with the Saints. You're doing that without Jalen. So then that's one of the reasons that I feel like the pressure is all in Philadelphia, because when they're fully healthy, they were wire to wire the best team in the league. Bar none. I don't think it was... Honestly, I don't even think it was that close.
In the last calendar year plus, Jalen Hurts
They're
only lost 2
26-2
games.
or something like that.
He lost to the Bucks, and he lost to Washington.
And besides Linval Joseph and Ndamukong Suh, the biggest off-season acquisition was Hassan Reddick. And there's a few others, too. We're not mentioning James Bradbury, he will not be back next year. I doubt. He's going to be able to get paid somewhere else. But he's here now, helping them possibly win the Super Bowl. But Reddick is the bigger one. He was drafted by the Cardinals, spent a few years there, I believe 4 years there. They didn't pick up, I think, his 5th-year option. He's out of Temple. Mm-hmm. Went to Carolina on a 1-year deal last year. Back free agency. Eagles pick him up, comes home, and has a mammoth year. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
And it was on display against the 49ers. I mean, he's the reason that Purdy's knocked out of the game.
Right.
He was just a menace the entire time, not just in the NFC Championship or the playoffs, but over the course of the entire season. It's incredible signing by Howie Roseman. And the defensive secondary, which by and large for many years had been an issue, even after they traded for Darius Slay, there were still problems there.
Yeah,
and I know a lot of it was
the only dude back
there. And a lot of that was injuries and things like that.
Right.
But I mean, just to look at where they are now.
A few years ago, I think they started 8 different safeties or something like that. You're not going to be successful at that point.
They have been, by and large, healthy, thankfully for them. Darius Slay's one of the best. Bradbury's having a great year. They've gotten Avonte Maddox back, who has developed. Kudos to their player development system. Depending on where you classify Hassan Reddick, whether you just think of him as more of a rushing defensive lineman or edge, that they call them, the only area that maybe you could point out, and I don't want to use weakness because I don't think it's weakness, but is linebackers still. But that's kind of a running joke with the Eagles. Is like they don't.
Well, and they haven't taken a linebacker in the first round in 40 years.
Right. But even then, it's not as if the Chiefs flaunt an incredible group of pure, true linebackers either.
Right.
They're
Well,
like hybrid guys or edge rushers.
In today's NFL, I say this, although my team is a good running team, but you look at it like you're not lining up in traditional like 4-3 defenses a lot anymore. Like you might for some downs, but you're basically going like heavier nickel so much more than you normally would. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, teams are going to invest in that 3rd/4th DB more than they are at some linebacker spots now, just because of the depth and number of guys you're going to be running out there. Now, I think the Eagles have some promising guys there, but we'll kind of see how it comes down tomorrow. Like, I'm worried in the Eagles' ability to tackling, not being there,
right,
making the tackle, and not necessarily the guys up front as much as just like when a guy gets the edge or when a guy, they get a short pass. Like if they catch it after 3 yards, you got to tackle him. Or if the running backs, like I watched Andy Reid coach for 14 years when he was in Philadelphia. Like when they may not try to line up and just run the ball, but they're going to do those short swing passes, where they got the running backs going out of the backfield, get them in space. Like, that's fine. You got to tackle them. Because if you don't, now it's 15, 20, 25 yards a pop instead of 3 to 5.
And that showed up at times, infrequently, but at times, a few games this year. I mean, I think it back to that McCaffrey run against them early in the game 2 weeks ago in the NFC Championship game. Like, no one could tackle or wanted to tackle. It was just super weird. If those flaws show, that's an issue.
Right.
When you have Travis Kelce running down the seam, or you have the likes of Pacheco and McKinnon out in open space, especially Pacheco, who has been a great revelation for them this year. Rookie out of Rutgers. It's funny, I've been playing against him, I feel like, for the last 8 years on NCAA football as the rosters have been updated. I feel like every time I play Rutgers, Isaiah Pacheco's having some wild and crazy game against me, and now I see him here in the NFL doing that for the Chiefs. And I think that is one of the pressure points for the Eagles. The one thing that could be their undoing, I think, is missed tackles.
Yeah. And now I feel like that against, like in terms of the Eagles so much, I feel like that's an NFL-wide thing. Like any game we watch.
We see it in high school and in middle school too.
It's just guys missing tackles and because they're trying to hit big. And I've never been out there trying to tackle an NFL caliber offensive guy. You know what I mean? So, like, I get it. But, like, man, when guys, like, wrap up in the NFL, it works so many times. Now, I also know, like, when you're running up and trying to get up against Derrick Henry, it's not as simple as wrap up.
Yeah,
like, I understand. But
just wrap up. How hard is it?
But so many of the times, I'm just like, here's the thing. You don't have to, like, make a huge tackle. You need to slow him down so that everyone flying to the ball can keep him from breaking loose and making a big play.
Which is always the thing that we preach to our middle schoolers. 11 hats on the football. Right. Everyone get to the ball.
If the Eagles are flying to the ball, I'm more confident.
Gang tackling.
Right. That's what you have to do. So, we'll see.
In terms of, if you would list the positions, who has the edge? The Eagles have the better secondary. The Eagles have the better defensive line. This is the toughest one, but I still give the edge to the Eagles on the edge, mostly because of the year Hassan Reddick has had. But, Josh Sweat has been very good. Depends where they line up Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham. So I know some of the Chiefs guys have had great years too, and great rookie pick at Karlaftis out of Purdue, and Chris Jones, Frank Clark. But even as how good the Chiefs' edge and defensive line players are, the Eagles, I believe, are the better group of talent there. I think maybe true traditional linebackers is where you could see. I don't even know that you can give the edge to the Chiefs. It's just I don't think either group is outstanding.
Right.
But overall, and this leads me to where I'm going with this, I feel like in almost every capacity, the Eagles are better. I mean, they went 14-3 throughout the year, and two
Hold
of those
on.
games missing their quarterback.
All right, I'm going to say this very, very clearly. The Eagles have only won one Super Bowl.
He's aware.
That's true.
I also want to say that Kenneth Gainwell,
Right.
he hasn't had like any very, very recent injuries.
No, I don't think so.
Which makes him less gullible. Which,
Not gullible.
what word am I looking for?
Susceptible?
Yes. He has the better chance of doing something awesome.
Oh, you think Kenneth Gainwell could be an X
Yes.
factor for the Eagles?
Yes,
I could
he's
see
a-
it.
Imagine
I have
odds
a
you can get on
list-
Kenneth Gainwell.
I have a
Super Bowl
list
MVP?
on my screen, and like almost everybody on the screen has had an injury in recent times, but like Kenneth Gainwell, no recent injuries.
All right, well, you heard it here first. Kenneth Gainwell. If the Eagles win the Super Bowl, Kenneth Gainwell might have a big day.
That would be incredible. I'm all for it.
So I'll start us off here, Natalie. You can go next, and we'll let Uncle Justin finish, okay?
All right.
So maybe you give the edge to the Chiefs in the kicking game, maybe? I don't know. Like
So
special
Butker's
teams
been all over
overall.
the place, but special teams overall, not to overlook.
Eagles
might
punter,
have Sippos
back,
back, which would be huge. And also, if they could manage to not get
hit
the
the
guide
wires.
wire in
Yeah.
there this week, that would be fantastic.
I don't. Again, I feel like the return game, especially if they throw a wrench in there and change up who's returning them.
Because Kobe might be out.
Right.
So Devontae Smith may be returning punts.
Yeah, so I feel like I have to say a push on that just because I feel like it's the Super Bowl. They could change things up a little bit. I think that's a push there. Special teams, I may give a slight edge to the Chiefs if Sippos is rusty or doesn't play.
Right.
But again, I think that's very much a push.
Right.
I don't see either team being much better than the other. But the rest, I give the edge to the Eagles in nearly everything, except for tight end. But again, Dallas Goedert's no slouch. And quarterback, but again, Jalen Hurts, and I think most people, and I'm sure the Eagles wanted him to win MVP and Offensive Player of the Year, and not to take anything away from him, but I do just think Mahomes has the slight edge.
Well, and if he doesn't get hurt and they go 16-1, there's no guarantees that he would have played in that.
Right.
But you know what I mean. Like if they go 16-1, he probably does.
Probably
win.
wins,
You know, he probably does win.
But again, that's very close to a push or a toss-up, however you want to word it. But the two things I give the Chiefs the edge to are slight, very, very simple. Whereas the Eagles have an absolute edge on the offensive line. The Eagles have an absolute edge at wide receiver. They have an absolute edge at defensive back. Kudos to the Chiefs using all those rookies, and hopefully L'Jarius Sneed can stay
And holding
healthy.
the Bengals to 20 points.
Great. I mean, Steve Spagnuolo
that's crazy.
is a great defensive
And
coordinator.
they remind me so much of the old Colts from 2 decades ago, where the defense all year you're like, defense.
I don't know if they can get it done.
And then the defense would get better as the year went on. Like,
Yeah.
there they are every year.
So, to me, it's the Eagles' game to lose. It really is. And I know I feel like a lot of people think that. I've seen more of national media pick the Chiefs than I expected to see.
Right.
But by and large, by the numbers, I
don't
can't
know,
pick
man.
the Chiefs.
All the Niners are telling me the Eagles don't have a shot.
I cannot pick the Chiefs.
Same with the Giants.
I want to pick the Chiefs, and I want the Chiefs to win. I cannot pick them. I just can't. I have no reason to. Just with everything that's out there, both statistically, player matchups. Mahomes is more injured than Jalen Hurts. I think Jalen's pretty close to being 100% healthy. So unfortunately, I'm definitely going with the Eagles here. And the other thing that I've also been seeing, which drives me bonkers, and if there were more fans like you, like it would make you feel even more anxious about the game because I've seen so many Eagles fans who think this will be a blowout.
Right.
Like I mean, I don't mean winning by like 10 points. I mean winning by like 4 or 5 touchdowns.
No.
Like I saw
There's
someone
not a chance. There's not that won't happen. That won't
someone
happen.
first comment on the Red Eagle post about Chad Henne being in the Super Bowl is great story, Birds by 30. And a kid I graduated with from high school who I believe is an Eagles fan. It's like, dude, why do you have to do that? This is why people don't like Eagles fans.
Right.
And I want to be like, he's not wrong.
Right. But I just think back to, and I have the same thing when I go, you and I think so much the same about a lot of these things. Like when I go to a Penn State game and people are like, I just don't see, especially when they're not playing like Ohio State or Michigan, they're playing like Michigan State. They're like, we're so much better than this team. Like we should absolutely beat them by like 4 touchdowns. I'm like, have you never seen a Penn State Michigan State game? Like this, the chance that they could blow it out, but like the chances are some backup quarterback is going to come in from Michigan State and throw for 350 yards and 4 touchdowns. Like, have you not seen this movie? We've all seen this movie. Like, don't do this.
This is why I hate student sections and why I hate general fan bases. And that's not a Penn State thing. That's not an Eagles thing. That's just in general. It drives me bonkers. It's not even like a bandwagon thing. It's just not everyone can be hyper focused or that's their number one thing in their life. And I get it. I don't blame them for it. But then don't run your mouth about it.
Right. Don't be so confident about your opinion on it.
Right, yeah.
When you know nothing
about it.
Surprise.
There's people that go out there and talk about things and they have no idea what they're talking about. But like I feel like you and I are always very pessimistic or
well, I was thinking
cynical.
of the thing you sent me just I think this morning or late last night of like expect the worst and then
and then when the worst happens you'll be okay about it or something like that.
Yeah. Then when the worst happens you can be happy knowing that you were right.
You were right.
Even though
the worst thing happened. Yeah. That's essentially how I go about my life is expect the worst so that when the worst happens, you're happy about it because you knew it was going to happen. And I feel like that describes my fandom, my sports interest for every level from Wilson all the way up through the professional leagues, whether it's the Dolphins, Flyers, Phillies, Sixers, whoever, Penn State football. I'm always like, well, literally, what is the worst that could happen? Let me list all the things. This is my sports anxiety that we're talking about. But then I see people who are free of those sports anxieties.
I don't get it.
And maybe they either do 2 things that. Well, one, they're either right and look brilliant, which I hate. 2, they're either wrong and don't care, which I also hate. 3rd, they just don't care. Like it doesn't matter. Or they're hypocritical and they immediately like hedge, like they're like, well, that's because of they go on a tirade of discussing of why they weren't right when they were so confident that they would be right. But
you mean like saying, well, if our quarterbacks wouldn't have gotten knocked out in the NFC Championship game, we had them right where we wanted them.
Or commenting on random stories about local people by Birds by 30. Yes. I would like to find that guy after the result of the Super Bowl and just see what his headspace is like.
Although if the Eagles win by 30, I'm going to go on and
and
screenshot it.
I don't want that to happen. Not only because I would not want to see a dominant Eagles victory like that. I don't want to see an Eagles victory at all. But I don't like that because the game wouldn't be interesting.
I'm okay with it
for the fans of 31 other teams. But also, it's going to bring in the discussion about Mahomes and Reed in the Super Bowl after the way they lost to the Bucs 2 years ago.
Yes.
And especially because then people will be like, well, they also had to have a crazy comeback against the 49ers. Like, as if that Super Bowl trophy doesn't matter at all. Like, well, they had to do it. Yeah, they did it. That's all that matters.
People seemingly forget that was Kyle Shanahan, who has a history of doing these things, yet everybody just overlooks that and talks about how great he is.
Oh, no, there's one guy on Twitter that remembers every single thing that Kyle Shanahan did wrong. Or even if it was the right thing, he was pretty sure it was going to be the wrong thing. I have since had to unfollow him because it became so overpowering that I just didn't. I just couldn't handle it anymore. And I don't care about the 49ers at all. But watching, like, going through my Twitter feed when the 49ers was playing was, It was bad. I've told you about it multiple
Yep,
times.
yep.
I just had to be like, nope, I'm out. I can't. So I was glad that I didn't have to see that when the Eagles beat them and Purdy was injured and Shanahan made mistakes at the beginning. Whew, yeah, that was rough. But so I'm picking the Eagles. I do think it's going to be a close game. I'm not going to pick the alleged leaked script score of 37-34. I don't know if you've seen that
Can you
floating
imagine
around.
if it happens?
I do not. I will not pick that. I don't think it'll be that. I can't see the Chiefs giving up 37 more plausible, but the Eagles giving up 34. I just can't see either of those things happening. I think both defenses have enough talented players to keep the offense a little off balance at time. I could see it be a defensive slugfest early. Like we could get a lower scoring first half, but then it becomes like the Super Bowl between the Patriots and Panthers, where all of a sudden a bunch of touchdowns are scored late. So I could see the game ending up maybe getting into the 30s, like 31-27, something like that, or high 20s, 28-24, something like that. I don't see both teams getting in the 30s. So I'm gonna say, I'll say 28-24 Eagles. 28-24 Philadelphia.
Where do I sign? I'll sign on for that.
All right, Natalie, how about you? We'll let Uncle Justin. He'll have the last word since it's his team. What are your predictions for the Super Bowl? I know who you told me you think is going to win. What do you think the score will be, and who's going to win?
I think it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be the Eagles.
Go Birds.
Eagles 17-27.
Eagles win 27-17.
Yeah.
So the
I'm okay with
Eagles
that too.
win
Where do I sign?
27-17. All right, 2-0.
Okay, so one of the things that I texted you about the other day that I was going to save it for the show, I agree with you. When I go through spot by spot, like I feel like the Eagles are better, and you know that's eating me alive. You know that's eating me
Right,
alive.
because it goes back to that sports anxiety we just talked about.
Like I wanted to break out my underdogs shirt. I want to break. I
Not
love that.
this year.
Right. Last time the Eagles were underdogs in every playoff game, even though they were the 1 seed. Every one. Not this year. Now, again, there were other circumstances there, but that's not the case this year. However, there are two spots where I just can't give the edge to the Eagles right now. And that's not a knock on the Eagles at those two spots. It's just because of what the other spots for the Chiefs have done. And that's quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, and head coach in Andy Reid. The problem I have is if you were to pick the two most important spots, like if I have to pick what two of spots do you feel like we need the best at? Now, some people might actually pick the line, like, and I get that. But if you have a great line
that's third,
and nothing, right. But like, okay, but if you pick quarterback and head coach, most people are going to be like, I'll take it. And I think that's what scares me, is that might be enough. Like, Patrick Mahomes with Andy Reid might be enough, because I think both of those guys are great. And I think, I know the talk is like, well, Mahomes has only been a few years. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame, and so is Andy Reid. And I talked about this last week. Like, Andy Reid is a surefire Hall of Fame coach, and if he gets there now, like if he gets
wins
second,
this one, it's
right,
sealed.
right,
First ballot.
To me,
First
as soon
ballot.
as he won that Super Bowl, he was guaranteed to be in the Hall of Fame. If he gets a second, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, right? So that's just the part that, like, I'm like, oh man, like. However, I feel like and that's not a knock on Sirianni, who I like, and it's not a knock on Hurts, who I really like. I think they're going to get it done, and I've gone back and forth. I hedge as much as anybody, hopefully not in the negative sense that we've talked about before, but like, I pick against the Eagles all the time just because I'm like, well, at least then I'm right, if they lose. But because I picked them in July, I can't hop off of that now. I'm going to go Eagles 34, Chiefs 27.
All right, 34-27. So we're all pretty close in terms of score. Natalie was a little lower, 27-17 Eagles for Natalie. I went 28-24 Eagles, and you said 34-27. 34-27. So we all think it'll be a good game, no more than 10-point spread. Not the Birds by 30, as I've been seeing people say.
Although, if we're going to deviate from our predictions, I'd be okay with it to go that way.
Right. Well, and also, we also
I
always
don't
like
care
to talk.
if everybody's bored. I like if the Eagles are winning. I don't.
No,
care.
I completely understand that sentiment.
No, I
get
know.
it.
I know.
But if there was if someone will be a blowout, who wins? Eagles. Like,
See, I view it the other
I
way.
cannot see the Chiefs blowing out the Eagles. I just can't. I it's hard for me to wrap my head around that happening.
That makes me so anxious.
I know. You're welcome. So,
All
yeah.
I have to say to that is go Birds.
All right, Natalie, anything to wrap up? Do you want to quick do a trivia
Yeah.
question? I know you were anxious to do that. So why don't we wrap up your Chromebook notes and get out the pro football book that you got for your birthday, and you can hit Uncle Justin and I with one or two trivia questions before we finish the show.
Okay. All right. So I know for a fact some of these I've read to you multiple times.
Well, right. So maybe we'll let Uncle Justin answer since I already.
No,
I don't want
yes.
to. I don't want to sound like a know-it-all because I've already answered the questions and know the answers. So.
I don't know all of them.
Well, I might not recall all of them, but I'm gonna have more of an inkling than Uncle Justin if it's a tough one. So,
Okay, well the
You-
first one's an only Uncle Justin because I read this one to you multiple times.
all right, well, go ahead.
Who was the MVP in the Saints' only Super Bowl appearance?
Drew Brees.
Who, we always say this, we saw play in Philadelphia
That year.
and we both knew right then and there that Kevin Cobb was not the answer.
I also I remember saying to someone, you could hold up an index card at like 35, 40 yards away and Drew Brees could knock it out of your hand. His
10 out of 10.
His insane accuracy was just unbelievable. Unbelievable.
And we got to see it.
Yeah.
With like 12 rolls off the
Man,
field.
there's- Like we've been to a lot of big time college football games. You go to an NFL game, you see how it's a different world.
Yeah. Crazy. All right, Uncle Justin got that one. Let's do another one.
Okay, so I just want to say it says, did you know that the Saints joined the NFL in 1967, but they only won one playoff game in 39 seasons before Drew Brees became the team's quarterback.
Oh, wow.
And then the city was
New-
wiped out.
The
and they had to
Aints.
come back. That was
New Orleans played in the first Super Bowl in the history of the franchise in 2010.
Yep.
That left only
First
these
and only.
That left only these four NFL teams to have never played in a Super
Oh.
Bowl. Can you guess them?
Yeah, let's see if Uncle
so
Justin
four
can
to
do-
never play. in the
Four
Super
that
Bowl.
have never played in a Super Bowl.
Not only in a Super Bowl, not four that have never won.
Yeah,
a Super Bowl.
not one.
Right,
Only ones that
right,
have
which is
never
tough,
played in.
Because I think Minnesota has never won. but
Correct.
They've played in.
You are correct.
So
I
let's
think they
see.
played in 4. I think they're 0-4.
Okay, so let's see. And I'm just trying to go through logically here, like because I don't know them off the top of my head. So the Jets have been there, the Patriots have been there, the Bills have been there, the Dolphins have been there,
Correct.
Eagles have been there, Giants have been there, Washington's been there, Cowboys have been there. So
Correct.
it's none of the East teams.
The
Steelers have
best,
been
the
there.
best. 8
Um,
best.
Browns, one of them.
Browns are
Yes,
one of them. Yep.
Brown is.
Bengals were in last year.
They were in twice previously too.
Yes. And the Ravens have won, so it's not them. Packers, Lions,
Okay,
Yes.
that's 2.
Yep, that's two.
Bears have won, Vikings have lost, Packers have won, and we already talked about the Lions.
Yep. So you're at 2. Cleveland. You honestly got the 2 harder ones.
Oh, Jacksonville
Yep.
and Houston.
Yes.
Yeah.
Those are the first 2. The expansion teams. Carolina's
Yes.
been there twice. No, once. Twice.
Twice.
Because they lost to the Patriots and they lost to
Right.
the Broncos. So, yes, the Jaguars have not made it. They've been in AFC Championship games, haven't won. The Texans have not made it. And then the 2 harder ones were Cleveland and Detroit because they've been around for so long,
Right.
which
right.
contributes to
Well,
their
and I don't
fans'
know. I'm sure,
unrest.
I would assume Detroit has like a championship.
Oh, I think they have an
championship
NFL World Championship. They
thing.
just
And I know
haven't played
Cleveland
in-
does because like Joe and I in college used to be
They
like-
beat the Eagles,
like,
didn't they? Didn't the Browns
probably.
beat the
And I
Eagles?
think did the Eagles win the year before it was the Super Bowl? I think the Eagles might have won the World Championship.
they had
the year
it.
before.
Well, they won it in 1960, but that
Right,
was
like-
about 7 years before the
right.
Super Bowl.
If it wasn't, it was like some of those right before the Eagles had it, and it's like, come on. But,
Oh, come on. Oh, come on. Yeah, I don't know the status of all the NFL World Championships, anything that dates before the Super Bowl, but See if there's a list. But you're right. The Eagles were very good right before the Super Bowl. Here, the history of the National Football League championship. I just need a list. Here we go. List of the NFL champions. So, Giants won in 27. Packers, we all know all about the Packers. They won 3 in a row, 29 through 31. The Bears are on there to win in 32. So 33 to 69, which is basically the NFL right before, and technically the last 3 are Super Bowls. But right before... They just renamed it, right. So the last... Where is it? Because the first
Super Bowl, the Packers won.
Yes,
right?
The first Super Bowl, the Packers won. They beat the Chiefs. I'm trying to I know the Eagles are here. So the Eagles beat the Packers in Philadelphia at Franklin Field on December 26, 1960. Then it went Giants, 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 Browns, Browns, Cowboys, Cowboys, Browns, Browns. So it was about a decade before.
Okay.
It was about a decade before.
But there, like the Browns.
The Browns were good back then.
So that would be what Joe, Joe's
right.
But we were really good right before they just started calling it the Super Bowl.
I mean, they were really good. I mean, look at, so here, the list right here. In terms of winners, the Browns won 4 times and had 7 second-place finishes. They had 11 appearances in the championship game in the 50s and 60s, like right before the NFL took off with the Super Bowl in the 70s. So I think technically the Super Bowl was in 1967, right? Because I thought it was. These are listing. So, but there were still separate NFL. Like the 2 leagues were taking their winners and playing each other. So there was still a separate NFL championship.
1967 was the first Super Bowl.
And I thought that was the Packers. So maybe they're doing. Okay.
It was the Packers.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Because the Packers won the first 2.
I thought the colors meant who won, but it doesn't mean the colors are who won. The colors are.
Is that for the league?
Based on division or conference, I guess. So that's what was confusing.
Oh, okay.
I thought blue was the team that won, but it's not. The winning team's on the left. So, yeah, so December 31st, 1967, Packers beat the Cowboys. January 1st, 1960, Packers beat the Cowboys. So, Packers won the right to play the Chiefs. Then the Packers won the right to play. Who was in this? Who did they beat in the second one?
Thought it might have been the Vikings or someone like that, but I don't know.
No, I don't. I think the Vikings were later.
Let's see. Hang on.
Oh, that's gonna bother me.
I'm getting it.
Who was Super Bowl II? Packers over. It have to be an AFL team. Because it was Packers over Chiefs in
the
Super
Oakland
Bowl
Raiders.
I. Packers over Raiders in Super Bowl II. Then Jets over Colts.
Yeah.
Right. In Super Bowl III. And then you get the first Vikings loss in Super Bowl IV.
Right. Okay. I knew it was early.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, the Cowboys had that win, the 1960 NFL championship. Browns were great in the last 2 decades of the NFL before the Super Bowl, before the merger. But Browns not making the Super Bowl. Lions. Who's closer though of those 4 teams that haven't made it? Next year, Jaguars, Lions, Super Bowl.
Could be. Like, as crazy as that sounds, like,
I don't think it's gonna be quite there. I hope Detroit wins the North. That would be great.
I think it would be a disappointment if those 2 teams didn't make the playoffs.
I agree. I agree.
I know that's a jump, and you need a continuation for the Jags, but I would say they made the playoffs this year, and they won a playoff game. It would be a disappointment if they don't make it next year. And for the Lions, I mean, I feel like that's the next progression. They missed out because of a team losing, they needed help on the last weekend and they didn't get it.
Yeah. All right, Natalie. Last question, and then we're out of here.
We've only done 2 questions.
I know. I said we'd do 2 or 3, so
okay.
Let's do one more.
All right. I need to find.
Oh, you don't have it. You're supposed to have these ready. What are you doing over there? You're too busy putting mini helmets on your head and then dropping them on the table.
I need to get
You think I don't know? I thought you had asked.
I know what I wanted to say to you while she looks for the question. I know the Eagles have the loaded roster, but they didn't win a single individual postseason award.
No, right.
You know, like
they were close in a bunch.
Right. And I get it. Like Mahomes had an MVP year. Like there's nothing wrong with that. What Brian Daboll did with the Giants is good. I think it's also more of a statement about what the Giants were before. You know, like
Right, yeah.
In my opinion, Doug Peterson was coach of the year because not only was that a bad team,
right? It
but
proved
they were
so much.
Like that team and culture were so bad. So bad. There are countless articles about how bad that was. So like to me, that's it. But I like Peterson. Obviously, I have ties to that. I'll like him forever because he won the Eagles a Super Bowl.
I'm ready.
Right.
They're only one. I know, Natalie.
All right, Natalie, hit us.
If you get this right away, I get the right to do another question.
Okay, all right. Make it hard then.
Who was an all-star in baseball and a Pro Bowl running back?
Oh,
Go ahead.
Bo Jackson.
All right, pick one more. This is it, though, whether he gets it right away or not.
Who? Bo Jackson. His hip injury was the same as Tua's hip injury, but decades removed, that's the change in medicine. Didn't end Tua's career.
Right. Yeah, it's crazy to think about what Bo Jackson could have been.
Doc Moyer explained that to my class.
Yeah,
He came
disgusting.
In and the femur breaking out the back of the pelvis.
Yeah, awesome.
Like that's
fantastic.
He's like it normally only happens in car accidents, you know.
Oh God, that's gross.
Yes.
So gross. But all right, Natalie, you got one?
All right, yep.
All right, last one.
Who was the punky quarterback?
All right.
I don't know, but is it Jim McMahon?
Yes.
All right.
Chicago Bears. I think when I answered that, I called him Vince McMahon, the wrestling guy.
Yes,
and
yes.
she's like, well, you're sort of right. I was like, sorry, McMahon throwing me off.
Didn't
McMahon.
Jim McMahon go to
BYU.
Which
Crazy.
upset, like when
That-
you're like
yeah.
looking back, like would
Crazy
not have,
to
would
think
not have
about
pegged
that.
one.
Yeah. All right. Well, Natalie, thank you for joining us
Yeah,
for our
thank you.
Super Bowl preview
You're
and
welcome.
celebrating our 12th anniversary. And thank you to Justin for being here as his anxiety boils over and
it's-
his
I said to you
mental
earlier,
stability
like,
falls
it
off.
may just be like a therapy session, and I slippery slope of this fandom taking over.
And now that this part is over, he can just go home for the next 27 hours until kickoff and just rethink his life as we get closer and closer to the Eagles in Super Bowl 57, facing Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, and Chad Henne's Kansas City Chiefs. We will absolutely make an effort to get Chad back on the show this spring.
I'm meeting a multimillionaire.
Chad has not been with us on this show in person for 4 years now. He has not been in person on any of our shows in 3 years, which you weren't even here for the last time. And we haven't talked to him on this show in over 2 years now. His last appearance was the call-in, which amazing, has been talked about on a bunch of news channels around here, a bunch recently. He
You were
called in
on
right
the
after
news.
the Cleveland Browns game with the Chiefs 2 years ago. So we couldn't get him on the show last year. We're gonna try make our best efforts to get him back on here in person to discuss his career to date and this season that could maybe end up with the second Super Bowl ring for him. We will see, but I think that's about it. Any shout outs from you?
My sister's birthday is coming week, so
Yes, happy early birthday to Anja and happy early birthday to the one and only man, the myth, the legend, our resident Patriots fan, Uncle Rich.
I believe the same day, correct?
I think 15th.
15th,
Yeah,
yeah.
I believe.
Boo!
Natalie boos, and yet she's the one that has a pink bear with the Patriots logo on it. I don't.
You gave that to me.
No, Joey did not give that to you. Who do you
I can't
think
believe
gave
you
that
bought
to you?
that for your dog.
Who do you think gave that to you?
Uncle Ray.
Well, if it wasn't Uncle Rich and Aunt Diane, it was one of the other cousins
Coming from New England.
Yeah, from that area. It may have been Uncle Rich and Aunt Diane.
You were the one who has the Patriots mini helmet.
That is for show purposes so that we can show, as is evident on the table, who is playing in playoff games and the Super Bowl. And the collection is growing because my goal is to get all 32, but they need to make the playoffs, and there's just a few teams that haven't done that. But I am a huge fan of the Lions, so I already had the Lions. I was preparing for next year.
You need to get a Jaguars helmet.
I do need a Jaguars helmet. I don't have a Vikings helmet. I don't have a Giants. And then I'll get Chad to sign it because he got to wear those. So, all right. Well, that's it for our Super Bowl episode and our 12th anniversary show, episode 370 of the Joe Mays and J-Raff show. Hope everyone enjoyed it. We will be back again at our normal day and time next Sunday at 8:30 to recap Super Bowl 57. And Justin will be very happy or very sad. So, and already looking forward to the 2023 season. But before that, we'll have free agency, the draft, schedule release, and my trip to Canton, Ohio for Zach Thomas's Hall of Fame induction. So that's it for us. Thanks for joining. We'll be back again in 8 days. And until next time,
go Birds.
Go Chiefs.
KC, KC, KC.
Thank you, Natalie.
That's a wrap on this episode of the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show, brought to you by Mays Sandwich Shop. Woo-hoo! You can watch each weekly episode live on Facebook, Periscope, or YouTube. Be sure to like, follow, or subscribe to the show on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, and Google Play. You can also rate and review us on many of these platforms as well. We'd love to hear from you. Send your emails to the Mays Sandwich Shop inbox at joemaysandjraff@gmail.com. The Joe Mays and J-Raff Show is a part of the JMNJR Radio Network, home to other productions such as the Bulldog Hour, Tangents with Friends, and Nat Chats with Dad. Until next time.